All right, let's get going here, and hopefully Hiram will be here shortly. So I'd like to
He is
call.
on his way. I apologize, I meant to say, he's on his way. He had a medical thing, nothing bad, but he's coming.
Okay.
Just wait.
I'd like to call the Economic Development Commission to order. Today is Thursday, December 11th. Do we have any comments, questions on the minutes? Yes.
I had abstained on the vote, but I can change my vote if you want.
Don't you hate when they do that?
Where are we on that page?
Well, down near the bottom,
Okay.
where Hiram's talking about the, where is it?
Tax abatement?
Yeah, it was under the, yeah, it was voted, that was unanimously voted to support this effort. It wasn't unanimous because I abstained.
Okay, so,
However, I do support the effort. I'll
Okay.
clarify that.
all right.
So I can change my vote if you want.
How would you like it to be noted?
I don't think I can change my
Wait,
vote.
huh?
can't change
You
it.
you can't, wait a
I
minute.
change my vote.
We just have to,
Yeah, I'll take.
Note that you
just have
abstained.
to make a note that I
Okay.
abstained.
Putin wants to say.
okay, any other comments or questions on the minutes? Do we have a motion for approval?
Moved.
Second? Second.
Second.
All right, thank you. I'd like to add, I got a hold of Elaine Lang, who's the new executive director of the Simsbury Historical Society. She's going to come in about 8:45 and just give us a very brief overview of what direction they're heading in. So I'd like to, since I just got a hold of, she just got a hold of me yesterday, I need a vote to include her on our agenda, since it was not added before. So do we have a motion to add Elaine Lang to the agenda?
We can add it under new business,
Okay.
so I move.
Okay, so move, second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Reports. Who would like to go first?
I went first last time, you go first now.
I wasn't here. I was verified.
I was. Next time I'll go first, in January I'll go first, okay?
All right, good morning. This is going to be very quick. Just a couple of things. Main Street sits on the Innovation Core Committee, and I don't know if, I'm assuming that everyone's been kept up to speed, but we are planning our first innovation fair in April, the end of April. And what it is meant to do is highlight Simsbury's innovative products, our innovative ideas, and we have the public schools participating and the private schools. We have the library participating, which will be providing kids events. Main Street, along with Hiram Peck, and I believe the Chamber will be coordinating the businesses, everything from, for example, Bill Seelig, jewelers who, creates and makes their own jewelry, to other, innovative foods and in carrying with the theme. So we're still in the planning stages. I'll have more information for you, but it's the April 26th? Yeah, I'll get the date, but it's the end of April, and we're going to do it from 10 to 3 on a Saturday. We felt that as a first-year endeavor, it was better to keep it to one date. Main Street has really been concentrating on educating the public and shopping locally, on the benefits of shopping locally. And for the first year, Main Street has partnered with American Express. We signed up to be a neighborhood champion, which business associations, nonprofit organizations around the country have been doing. And so we signed up. It's you go through a vetting process, and then they either accept or deny you, and we were accepted. And what we did is put out a townwide mailer. I hope that you have already received this. It went out to every resident and every business in Simsbury. It went out the week before Black Friday and Small Business Saturday, the week before Thanksgiving. And we tried to do a couple of things with the townwide mailer. We talk about the importance of shopping locally. And I just, as the Christmas season is not done yet and people are still going after their last minute shopping, I just want to give a couple facts. Buying Simsbury equals supporting yourself. Studies show that when you buy from an independent, locally owned business, significantly more of your money is used to make purchases from other local businesses. This strengthens the economic base of the community. Supporting Simsbury community groups. Nonprofit organizations receive an average of 250% more support from smaller business owners than they do from larger businesses. Keeping Simsbury unique. When you shop Simsbury, where you shop, where you live, where you eat, where you have fun, all of it makes Simsbury home. It creates more more jobs in Simsbury. Small local businesses are the largest employer nationally, and in our community provide the most jobs to residents. Encourage Simsbury's prosperity. Economic research suggests that entrepreneurs and skilled workers are more likely to invest and settle in communities that preserve their one-of-a-kind businesses and distinctive character. And so we wanted to really encourage and educate people to shop any local business in Simsbury. You can't buy everything in Simsbury, but start with the things. Think of Simsbury first. Think of the things you can buy here first. And it helps. We pride ourselves on quality of life and community pride, and the fourth quarter is incredibly important. It's the most important quarter for these small businesses. So if you like the way your town looks, the small town feel, the distinctive businesses, shop here, because if you don't, they won't be here next year. And towns begin to look different as they fall out. So what we did is we did a townwide flyer. Just to remind the viewers at home, we're also a 501c3 nonprofit, so we did our membership drive, and I encourage people to make a tax-exempt donation to Main Street, should you choose. But we also provided a couple of things. We talked about one of our partners, which is the Simsbury Junior Women's Club. They had a very successful luminary night again, and I think it's amazing because all of the proceeds go directly back into Simsbury nonprofits. And, everything, we attended the banquet last year, the breakfast, and it goes to everything from social services, the police department, Culture Parks and Rec, through Simsbury Celebrates, Main Street. I mean, they do a whole host of good, and it all comes from the money here. We're still doing a toy drive. This is our third year with the Simsbury Masons. So we have 5 different locations in town where people can drop off a new unwrapped toy. And all of that goes back to the Salvation Army. And the Salvation Army provides for some of the poorest families in Greater Hartford. I'm proud to say that one of our board members, Stephen Antonio, who's been a longtime business owner of Simsbury, the Salvation Army helped out his family. His mom was incredibly poor, and so she would get a turkey every year from the Salvation Army because she couldn't afford to purchase that on her own. And so he not only is a toy receptacle, but he donates a portion of his proceeds in December. And if you read his newsletters that go out, his daughter actually is celebrating her birthday, I think, this week, and has asked that in lieu of gifts people bring to the party for her, that they would donate a toy for the Salvation Army drive. So we talk about it. We go on the radio. We'll be on Talk Time 1080 Saturday, December 20th at 7:30 a.m. But we go on with the Masons and we talk about how, why we do this and how important it is to the community. So I encourage you, it's a great thing to do with your kids, to just think of other people this season. And then again, finally, with the shop locally, what we did this year, which was a first-year endeavor, is we're really trying to drive dollars back into the local community in a meaningful way. And so what we did is we got a variety of businesses all up and down the district to participate in a buy a $50 gift card for $40 during Black Friday and Small Business Saturday. We had a ton of good publicity. I will say that this was the Thanksgiving flyer from Fitzgerald's, which I forgot to show at the Board of Selection meeting. And he had put it on the back. Brian DeVoe, who's another board member, who's an amazing community participant, had put this on the back with the information. We were in the November 27th edition of the Valley Press. We had a fantastic article in the Valley Life, December, talking about the importance of shopping locally. So it was very successful. I'll just give you an example. Again, Antonio's participated, was one of the businesses that participated on a week where he maybe does no gift cards, maybe one. He did 48. He did 48 gift cards during those 2 days. Fitzgerald's did, again, on a weekend, which is relatively slow. It's more about buying for Thanksgiving. He did 80 gift cards during those 2 days. Okay, so we're tracking those numbers. This was a first year endeavor. Bosco's, everyone, they're so excited. Harvest Cafe was thrilled. They did, I don't have the numbers yet, but she sent me an email because they were so excited by the number of gift cards they did, which they don't normally do on a slow day. So in addition to reminding people to shop locally and continually reminding them over these next couple weeks, we were able to pump real money back into the local economy, which has been amazing. And we will continue to grow this. There's more excitement. You'll see a ton more businesses participate next year. But I think it was really fantastic. And you talk to the businesses that participated, they were thrilled.
Sarah, the luminaries, I guess it's the Junior Women's,
Yes.
was it one big company supporting that effort?
I think that they have one supplier that gives them a fantastic deal, but then it is businesses, like, for example, Main Street partners with them. We put it out to our business community because businesses could get a set for their business, and then residents could get a separate set. I think the difference is the businesses got more, and it came with the tea lights that are battery powered for safety, and then the residents got the kits with the little regular tea lights. So it's not one business. It's actually people purchase these kits all over town.
Sarah, during this Christmas season, you hear all sorts of statistics, Cyber Monday,
Yep.
like, how it was going compared to prior years. Is Main Street Partners going to we were up, our businesses, you going to start publicizing some figures?
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. Again, this was a first-year endeavor for us to do something in a much more organized, meaningful fashion. And what we found out from the business community, for example, I've had long talks with all the businesses. Peggy Bosco's like, this comes at a fantastic time for Bosco's because they really want that business. And these Black Friday sales have been popping up everywhere, and this gives people an opportunity to not just do Black Friday in the big box stores, but to do it in Simsbury. And the other thing is, although we love Simsbury Celebrates, it's a fantastic community event, it hurts the businesses. That's normally Small Business Saturday. That's a day when people are fixated on, well, I'm going to go out and purchase stuff from a small business. And for a period of time, you have a ton of events in downtown that shut that off. So we will publicize a lot of these figures. I'm still getting some of those figures back, but you can tell 48 gift cards, 80 gift cards over a time when 2 days when things were very normally slow. Is meaningful. The other suggestion that we got as we're revamping this and we'll be doing an even bigger event next year was the idea to sell those gift cards online, because a lot of people are doing their online purchasing. And you can go online and buy a gift card from any big retailer, but you haven't been able to do that with the small business owners. So Main Street is trying to figure out a way, and I think we have a way where we can do that on our Shop Simsbury website as well.
Are these gift cards redeemable at any given?
No, what would happen is, you'd go into Ski Tunes, which participated, and you'd buy a $50 gift certificate or card from Ski Tunes for $40. So it was store specific.
Okay,
if we sell it online, then we'd have some sort of drop down menu where you could choose, I want, anything preppy at Simsmore Square, and you would choose that one. So they're only good at that specific store.
An empty nest, my kid gave me instructions to get some electronics for him. So I had to venture to Best Buy. To me, the attraction of shopping locally and not getting into a mob scene or queuing up or finding parking is surprisingly attractive.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing to remember is, as we found out, especially with social media and some of the things, when people are asking questions, where do I get this, where do I get that, think about where you're referring people to, because the minute you say, oh, I should go to Lowe's or you should go here, you start changing their spending habits. And yeah, they might save a couple dollars on an item, but you're driving out 20 minutes, really, if you like the way the community looks and you want to see more of that, you got to remember to patronize. Instead of going to a big box store, remember that we have Neckers. We have an amazing little toy store right in our town, and not everyone has that. So we're really trying to put it out there and remind people you cannot buy everything in Simsbury, but the stuff you can buy, please think of them first, because it's important to the way the community pride. It's important to the economic base.
That might be an idea to online a list of the stores, check to get a gift card for any one of these stores?
Yep, we did. We had a huge online presence. We had it on our homepage with all of the details as well, everything listed.
It'd be interesting to see how this whole thing at the end of the season pans out.
Not to go too far off on a tangent, but just had an idea from what you just said, is it would be an interesting project if you could get all of your businesses, I mean, I don't know to what extent they have their own inventories cataloged electronically, but to the extent you could do something to aggregate all those inventories, so if someone wanted to get, a Toro 9 horsepower snow blower, where could they get one? And it would just pop up the stores. You don't have to do anything with pricing necessarily, but just availability of things to the point that, people typically just think to go to.
That's not a bad idea. They don't understand
There's stuff, yeah.
Let me think. Let's talk about that, because I'd be interested in that. I don't know how to do that, but I'd be interested in exploring that. Because again, the depth and breadth of all of the things available in Simsbury, I think would shock a lot of people.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think it would too. So if you had
list
something like,
of-
what are you looking for? It would be it would almost be a type of a Google search. You'd be like, what are you looking for? And you could do it.
You can't buy it, but you
by
can see
category.
that they have.
You don't have to be able
it.
to buy it, but it's just like you're looking for X, and then boom, it pops up. Here are the stores.
That's not a bad idea, Jay. I'll look into that, absolutely.
What was you said you partnered with American Express?
Mm-hmm.
In what way did that work?
Well, so American Express runs Small Business Saturday, and they've really been turning this into a national movement. And so I think it was the first year that they did this, which is called, it's a neighborhood champion. And you have to follow certain criteria. You have to be a nonprofit or a business organization, association, et cetera. You sign up, you go through what you're planning. You have to give in great detail the type of event that you want to do. And then they look it over. Within 2 weeks, they give you an approval to say yes, in which case they ship you out a whole bunch of material. Which I was able to deliver to all the businesses. I got doormats, we got balloons, we got shopping bags, and so everybody that participated in the Small Business Saturday got a kit of materials as well to promote this.
Okay. And will you hope to get, at the end of the season, collect information from your
yes.
businesses to see how they actually did, so you
Yes.
had some sort of metric that you could?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Absolutely, we're doing that right now.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy Yancey from the Farmington Valley Visitors Association.
See, I walk out, she leaves. Thank you. And an early happy holiday to everybody, and a safe new year. We've been a little crazy. Our guide will be going to the printer next week. We are in the process of planning Get Sweet on FVBA, a February 4th event. Kicking off membership, kicking off what's going on in the Valley, and if I can just interject, Sarah, when you start planning something like that, let me know, because I'll put it out in the newsletter, but I didn't get it from you. So.
You're on my list for next year. It's going to be huge.
Fine. And obviously, that's one of the things that I'm here for. The other exciting thing is I had a lovely meeting with Lisa Gray, who is the new executive director of Simsbury Chamber, and we'll be meeting on a monthly basis to see what we can do together to help Simsbury and membership and business, so I'm very excited about that. Our November 16th lecture that was held at the Ellsworth Center at Simsbury Historical Society on cemetery and gravestones was absolutely wonderful. I know, it was fun.
I didn't want to go to that. I'm too young.
They weren't selling them, Dave.
We had nothing.
They didn't have any fittings.
Nothing to, Well, we're not doing that again.
Oh, okay.
Okay, 2015 currently is the year of historic taverns. So our bus tour, May 2nd, will be historic taverns. We will be drinking in Barkhamsted at the end, but we will be at Simsbury Historical at the beginning for dance and breakfast, and we'll all learn about the lovely adult refreshments that were served breakfast, lunch, and dinner in colonial times.
Yes,
So
I
we
think
are-
you're moving in the right direction from the gravestones to the taverns.
So Dave can come to this one.
I
We all
love
can.
that one, yeah.
Enthusiastically.
Absolutely, positively. We are still trying to pull together sponsorships for Try Simsbury so that we can create the rec cards and the flyers and posters to get going on that, and hopefully we'll know that by the middle of January. I was just at the Tourism Advisory Council for the state of Connecticut on Tuesday, and the Connecticut Conference on Tourism is now back to what it was called 3, 4, 5 years ago. It is now the Governor's Conference on Tourism, and they're trying to revamp it. It will be May 2nd at the Convention Center, and as soon as I get more information, I will let you know. Also at that meeting, Adams and Knight, who is one of the 4 advertising marketing firms that the state has hired, said that in conjunction with a statistical company, we will soon find out the year's statistics, 2013, and the fact that it has grown so much since the time we had $1, and then we had 9 million, and then we went up to 15 million. The whole point of trying to get this out in January, I don't know if it'll be out by our January meeting, but it'll be out by our February meeting, is to really use that as a legislative tool to make sure that the state gets 15 million, and then the tourism districts will hopefully still get their 500,000, give or take and change. Everything was cut, so all budgets were cut 5% from the governor starting, well, effective last month. And so we're hoping that as we get into the beginning of 2015, they don't cut tourism any more than just the 5%. Other than that, that's where we are.
In terms of each district or region
Yes.
receiving funds for tourism, intuitively, it seems like most of that would go to the shoreline communities and maybe Litchfield County. Are we equally funded?
Yes. The state is now divided into 3 districts: east, central, west. We all get the same 536, I don't remember exactly, a little over $500,000. The whole point of that is to spend at least more than 50% on advertising and marketing, as opposed to administrative. And there has been some difficulty with that in some tourism districts. Our Central Regional Tourism District spends every single dollar that we possibly can on marketing and advertising, and the statistics for our region will come out January, February, and have gone up significantly. And I work very closely with the Central Region, and we do our best to not only within the 65 towns that they advertise, but there's just a small percentage of favoritism, and there's a little bit more coming to the valley.
How far west does the 65 towns? Well, I mean, I'm trying to envision what's east, west.
New Haven
Were you
to the border.
included?
We are New Haven now.
Really?
Yes.
So,
So it truly is stripes. So you have Litchfield, Fairfield, Waterbury, west, and Mystic all the way up Quiet Corner, east, and then us in the middle. So we have all our little towns, but we have New Haven, and we have Hartford, and we have Middletown. So we have huge things to deal with. And Central Region is working with the Peter Group for advertising and digital and marketing, along with, other things that we do. And they're really doing a fabulous job. And so all those statistical numbers will be up.
good to know.
Yeah, very much so. When we have trouble with Facebook and Twitter, I go to them. And they help, because we are trying to do that ourselves to really get more likes. Because we've only been doing that now for about 3 months. So that's a big push for us in 2015. And that is also something, my dear, if you don't have the time, and the town itself. Give me something that you want to go on Central Regional's website.
The good news is we're
And events.
recreating and refreshing all of our branding as we speak. So we will have something
You know, so
shortly.
you can always email it to me and I can get it to them. And so we'll have our statistics ready for January, I guess?
Good.
Are we presenting January?
I think so. We have budget in January, and, but I'll certainly let you know.
Please, thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Comments, questions?
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
thanks. Yep.
Do you want her or?
What's it?
Morning.
Good morning.
We have concluded our tax abatement tour. So we have met with a number of groups, and the last was the Chamber of Government Affairs, and those folks are going to be getting comments back to us. And we also had a chairs meeting last night to sort of review where things were at right now and to timetable out some things that are very close to coming back to you guys, and then, or I should say to the task force, to you and the Board of Selectmen. So some of the comments for the tax abatement have been fairly consistent across the groups, and Hiram's working on pulling those together and putting together a revised draft. So we should have that, I think, back to the tax abatement committee. We'll have to catch up with you because you had to depart halfway through our meeting last night, but I have to catch up with Hiram, and we'll get back to you guys with some timing on that. But we're looking at January, February to hopefully bring that all back to a close. But what we do want to come back to you with in January around the time of the budget was, with that program, includes some funding for the infrastructure program, and that would need to be, if recommended, and move forward within this budget cycle. So I just want to mention that and keep that in mind as we move that piece forward. The other was let me grab this to get the correct off the top. Economic Development Commission Project Evaluation Framework. So that was shared with you folks for comment, and one of the things that came out of last night's meeting was actually to rename that the Economic Development Evaluation Criteria. So we had a little bit of discussion around that, but I think the group, the task force itself, is coming back with comments on December 18th for our next meeting, and I didn't know if you guys had any comments at this time for that particular item. So it really is a project evaluation framework around the idea, again, when a project comes before the commission, that they can look through this, ask questions, determine whether they think the project sort of meets all these criteria, and then it can really act as something that would go out to the press and say, this is why we think this project, would work for Simsbury, fits with Simsbury, that kind of a thing. I should back up and say, there was some feedback about this not making the project more arduous. It's not something the developer has to do. It's really for the commission to work through as they, listen to a project and determine whether it's in the best interest of the town to make a recommendation to any of the land use boards to support that.
So what if we use this and they got a low score?
Well, there's always projects that come before you. Some are good, some are bad. You may not take any action on it, So it's just a means to say, as you work through it, is this something that would fit with the things that we want our town to, have for development?
And would this conflict with the regulatory boards and commissions?
No, I don't believe it. Well, really, it's designed to, and I think when we explained this early on, Planning Commission evaluates with the Plan of Conservation Development document as a resource, Zoning Commission as a zoning regs, and so they do their thing in that regard. What this is meant to do is to try to help the commission, just as they, again, they're looking at a project and they're asking some questions, to make them more economic development-based questions, and really looking at sort of how the pieces of the puzzle work in regards to, again, making that favorable recommendation or not. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's useful. I think it's, I think it's important to have a tool to help kind of guide people's thinking. I don't think it should necessarily be something that, okay, we set cutoff scores and above or below is thumbs up or thumbs down, but I think too often we don't necessarily think about the specific issues, and it's more gee, this is my general thought. I kind of sort of like this, or I kind of sort of don't. And I think it's important to have some type of framework like the one that you shared to kind of help, kind of guide people's thinking. And it's
Yep.
a useful tool. And if at some point in time it needs to be updated to include something else, fine. If things kind of have a lower score on something else, maybe you talk about that and it helps improve the project. So, yeah, I mean, it made sense to me, and I don't think I'd spend too much time trying to get it perfect. I mean, I think it's a completely reasonable thing to use and to start with. And
Okay, good.
I like the evaluation idea. So when I went through it, some of the questions, I was like, how are we to know that? I mean, like how many jobs will it create in town and all that? What I think we need to also understand as we have the developers come in and they pitch their project on, say for apartments, residential, we don't know the context, the framework that we already have in town. So they're coming in with a project, but we really don't know how many other projects are in that framework to evaluate whether this is going to be excessive apartments now in Simsbury, or do we consider it based on already the metrics that are in the town of what the economic is made up of, whether it's residential or businesses? We don't know, and is that data available, the framework of how these will be part of the pie? I mean, the bigger picture.
I think that's a great question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't.
The other thing that this was meant to do is a couple things. It also shares with the developer the types of questions that they should anticipate coming before the Economic Development Commission, so that they are prepared. They understand, for example, you wouldn't know how many jobs.
Right.
But they already know these are the types of questions that are going to be asked, or these are the types of things that we would like you to cover relevant to this commission. So that's number one. And then number two, remember that we have amazing staff. And so, I think for Hiram especially is, use him as a resource. If they don't answer all the questions, a lot of times because Hiram has gone through that project in depth, you can ask those questions of the town staff as well.
Yeah, I should have mentioned, this is something that we will share, or you can share, I should say, Hiram will share with developers before they come before you, so that they will be prepared to answer those questions. And one of the things that comes to mind is actually when Landworks, right? Can I get that right? Came in, and then they spoke to exactly that. They talked about the number of kids in school, the different, statistics that were out there amongst projects they themselves had done. And they explained that, of course, they wanted a project for themselves that could be successful, and they didn't want to build housing stock that was not going to fit within a void that exists in the town, and therefore be sustainable and successful. And so I think some know to answer that question, and they come prepared and do it very well. So again, sharing this beforehand, giving it to you folks, and we kind of talked about the chair taking the sort of general tally, so there'd just be a single document that could be kind of pulled together so that it could be handed over to whoever might be in charge of writing a press release around it, and kind of put that stuff together. But Jay, to your point too, it isn't meant to say, okay, you got a 52, you didn't pass, we don't.
Right, I didn't think it.
Yeah.
It did. It didn't imply that it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to be clear, and even I don't know I don't know how useful it is necessarily for even press release purposes. It's more, I think, just a good guide, a good framework to kind of help people think about things in a kind of a disciplined way, and to facilitate discussions. If there's an area that, is kind of lacking, it's, good scores here, but not so much here.
Yep.
So both is it as a yay or a nay, but maybe back to the developer, what can you do to kind of rehabilitate this? Because, this has seen where our concerns lie.
And the whole premise behind it isn't obviously the press release, but when you think about what you want to do and how you want to make a recommendation or send a letter to the land use boards and such. But that if something comes along in town and the residents are out there and they're saying, I've heard about this and I've heard about that, and the commission has actually put a letter forward to the zoning commission that says, we like this project, well, here's why. And so the townspeople know that, it is going to create jobs, it is going to grow the grand list by X amount of dollars. So it helps to communicate some of that information as well. And just kind of provide that, which I think is helpful.
I was actually on the committee that did this, the subcommittee that did this, and one of the things we thought it was important is that there's economic development, and you guys can, okay, it adds to the grand list, but there are variations as to what's better economic development, what are things that aren't. So it gives you a framework to sort of look at. Not all economic development is the same. Some the community really wants, some have aspects that we'd like to see added to the proposal. So it gives you a framework, and it gives developers consistency. They know over time that you're going to be looking at these same factors. And so you're not going to be looking at some factors for one development and other factors for another. It just helps provide consistency. But you're right, it's meant as a recommendation. You don't even have to add the numbers up if you don't want to. But it gives you a framework within which to talk, and we felt that was very important to create consistency, because consistency is good for businesses. They know what to expect. They know what factors you're going to consider. And it helps them look at what kind of development we care about. And you know that by looking at the questions we're asking. So that was sort of the theory behind it.
Yeah.
So it's meant to be a tool for you,
Yeah.
for the land use boards, that's all. And for staff, as they evaluate projects.
The one thing, and it could have been on there, and I might have missed it, but is there anything that's kind of like vaguely
kind of sort of risk assessment-y, along the lines of, gee, is this going, this might have a lot of great things, but gee, is there going to be increased demand on police, fire, rescue
Question
services?
E.
Okay.
So what is the impact on traffic, public safety, and education? So, there's good questions, a lot of good, and as Lisa said, absolutely from a consistency perspective, and some may not apply to all projects, but, again, it allows you to kind of work through it in a consistent fashion, and
Maybe infrastructure.
predictability to that as well, so.
But it also lets
Yeah.
you know that it might be it's not really economic development if you're adding revenue and taxes, but it's costing the town.
right? Exactly. That's the whole point.
It's
Is
not
is
economic
getting
development,
to the
it's-
net,
yeah.
getting to what's the net. So
Right.
you could have something that might add $1 million a year to the grand list, but if in resources it's going to take 1.1, well,
Add infrastructure.
Then it's just development, but it's not,
Exactly.
it's not growing the grand list.
Yeah.
So it's a recognition that there are revenues that will come from this project, but also what are the costs to the town, and what is that going to do to the operating budget and your taxes over time? So that was sort of how we looked at it.
Nancy? Yeah. You think, I know, Simsbury sometimes has been portrayed as we have too many commissions, too many overlaps. What you said about consistency, Lisa, I think that's all well and good. But if you look back at what we'd be looking at housing, say, 10 years ago, what had happened in housing blow-off is that the millennials have, difficulty affording housing, affording the property tax. There is a mega trend towards rentals today. And what may be consistent now, or hopefully consistent, we're such a fast-moving technological world. What we could think should be consistent going forward, tomorrow may change.
But those are just questions. The answers might change how you think about whether it's.
But what I'm hearing is that, it gives us a better idea. What about fire? What about schools? I think these things go into people's minds when they're doing a project. I think it's all good that we could understand, yes, this is this. But to think that we're going to get a clue to what is going to be 4 or 5 years from now, or even 2 years from now, I think that's kind of risky business.
Well, then that begs the question, why are you evaluating projects at all? And if you don't think you should be evaluating projects, we can certainly consider that.
Well, I don't think it's black or white.
But this is not meant as a black or white document, it's just a guide.
Yeah, a lot of people out there make a lot of money on the forecasting that you're talking about, so.
Well, they found it's almost impossible.
So you're a year now into this task force. Can you produce like a one-page summary of what you've accomplished since then?
We are actually coordinating with the chairs to get before the Board of Selectmen on January 12th to give an update at this point. So, we certainly can, in providing that document, I know we're coming back before you guys on the 8th, so we can, work on that and get that going. And that was a lot of what last night's meeting was about, because we've hit, and before I go forward any further, are there any more comments on this in particular?
Yeah, I just, with the overall sort of matrix or the framework of the town, I think we should also keep in mind the mission and our vision for development in the town. I like the idea that we've talked about is, having a sustainable community that has all generations living there. And I think somewhere, whether it's in, a small little box or something, that we're mindful of when the developers come, does this fit our desire, our community's desire, our goals and objectives? Sometimes we forget the vision of the town and what we anticipate it being. So having those things in mind, the big picture, would also help.
Yeah, great. Okay. So that's the programs group, the tax abatement, the criteria. I'm sorry,
Could I ask you a question? The manner in which apartments are going to be handled, the pros and cons of that, has that been resolved by the task force? Are apartments going to be eligible for these tax abatements, et cetera, or aren't they?
There's a specific criteria in the draft policy, Dave, for people to consider. Apartments are assessed by the assessor as commercial activities, and the ones that we would be looking for would be ones that would be desirable. So this board might look, for example, at a particular project and said, this is a great project, we think it's desirable in this area. They may look at another project and say it's not, because it doesn't fit in with the various plans that we've done. So it would be up to you on a case-by-case basis as to whether to make a recommendation or not.
No, but I mean, the whole plan, because this was my great concern why I abstained before. I see a great movement toward the apartments because the developers see that this is opportunity and risk, et cetera. But, if we're going to have an incentive plan to bring in apartments, that's one thing. If we're not, that's another. So I'm just kind of curious how the task force perceives that.
I don't know, you want to?
Maybe there's no answer to the question,
There is.
I mean.
There's lots of parts of it. You read, the apartments are encouraged in certain areas. And if you read through the policy, it talks about town center, for example. It talks about village districts. There's a percentage of mixed use that's proposed as part of this as well, and apartments could be part of that. It doesn't fund, for example, large apartment complexes that are strictly residential. It doesn't do that. That's not the proposal. Simple answer.
Yeah, I think a lot of the discussion around this, and again, speaking to the fact that comments were fairly consistent from the various groups we were in front of, was around that percentage number. And really, it was to say, well, we've created all of these visions, and so, do we have a number at all? Or do we look to those documents to say, in this area of town where we've developed this vision, does this project, mixed use and whatever percentages within that project is, does it fit with the vision of what that document was? So, discussion around flexibility, but also discussion around the fact that we've got all of these things as reference points that would allow for that. So, but we have as a commission, I think at the very beginning, a lot of what we did talk about, and we had Yvonne Klein in, was around the idea of what we have for sort of voids in our town. And so, not just apartments, but a whole bunch of other things, and then geographically across the town where those are, and you want to incentivize what you want. And so we'll look to those things, or that will be a tool that can look to those things. So.
Question, any update on the website for the town or
We're
otherwise?
so good at segueing. So that was a huge part of our discussion last night, and we kind of led with that and are really excited about it. Jeff Dornenberg and the marketing group is working on a presentation that they've shared with that smaller group that they'll be bringing forward next week to the task force. We met, and I mentioned it when I was here last, with virtual town hall, and we sat with Maynard? Millard. And looked specifically at some of the sites. So we asked the group, what were you looking at? What are your favorites? He had those all queued up for the group to look at. And then we had a follow-up meeting with the task force, and unfortunately Carolyn couldn't be there, but we had some good progress since then. So we've got a presentation. We actually have a template for the design of it. And what came out of the virtual town hall meeting was we can do almost anything you want, just tell us what that is. So from a design and a functionality perspective, we were really encouraged by the feedback that he gave us. And, I think with Hiram and Rick, they'd actually already been anticipating and working on a contract that we're going to go back to that is for the town. And then it also, what it does, and I think addresses the concerns that Rick had in regards to sticking with virtual town hall, sticking with Drupal as the sort of back end of that. So I think in the end, we're going to end up sort of getting all the little pieces of it that we wanted, including a button for GIS. So we're pretty excited.
Do we have a time frame for as this evolves? Like at what point will we start the work and have a product to see? Yeah,
I'm going to just get to Hiram because next step is to go back to virtual town hall. They were waiting for us to have this discussion around the template and what we thought of the meeting with them. So we hadn't quite shared that with them, but I understand again that a contract with the idea of refreshing the town website is already in the works, and so we're pretty close to finalizing that. I think, and a thought I had was sharing the template with virtual town hall and just asking them if they can do maybe a one page on a development site and say, okay, here's what it looked like in a PDF, but can we achieve that? And just, yeah. Well, we'll do a full, in other words, when we get into the full thing, but I think my recommendation would be before we sort of sign on the dotted line that we actually allow them to just give us a little bit of a sample of, okay, this is your vision, and yes, we can actually technically achieve that, and we can get sort of the bells and whistles on it that you wanted. So we're going to be back in front of the task force.
The good news is, I'm so excited. Everyone's going to get what they want. We are going to get a clean, beautiful site. We've refreshed the branding using a lot of the feedback, but keeping the $150,000 in huge consensus building that we've been doing over the last 8 to 10 years, but refresh that so it's a little bit newer, which you should be doing. It's time to do that anyway. EDC is built into every piece of the website, but it goes to what it's just a beautiful thing, and it's going to be done on a very tiny budget. It really is a win-win.
Yeah, and I don't want to do sort of the unveiling of what Sarah's, that is not my thing to do. I am not responsible for it, and so I want those that actually were the brainchilds behind it to be the ones to launch it. But I think we've really come to a place where, we've got the website look and feel that we think we can get. We've got a nice budget to do that within, and then I think we've come up with a real sort of solution to not losing the investment that the town has already made through Main Street in all of the branding that was established, but refreshing that in a way that makes sense for economic development. So that is very exciting. And then just very quickly, the process group is very close to the orientation for the boards and commissions. So that's the first thing they're going to be sort of presenting out. So when you talk about kind of a summary of where things are at, that's the focus for that group. That we have a full plate in December, so that probably won't be something we talk in great detail about in that meeting, but that would be more in January for that group. Lots of things going on. So any other questions from the group?
All set.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
great. Yep, so we'll be back in January.
Okay, thanks.
Morning. Before I forget to mention it, I just wanted to let the board know that the chamber is looking for different office space. and they haven't decided yet as to where that should be. But they just wanted me to talk to Lisa yesterday, and she said that she wanted me to let the board know that they're looking for different office space that's highly visible office space. And if members of the board had suggestions or recommendations for the chamber for a different office space, they'd be glad to hear about it. So try to get in touch with her on that. A lot of things going on. Let me sort of start with a couple of things that were fairly recent. The consultant came back with a Simsbury Meadow study. I think one or two of you went to that last week, I believe it was. The Simsbury Meadow study, there was a presentation that was made by the consultant to talk a little bit about the types of things that are possible down there, the types of fields and things that are possible. I know this board has been talking about that particular area for a long time. Some of the plans that were shown were things that were not new, but there were also a lot of new ideas that were discussed as well. At this point in time, the consultant's looking for feedback from the study, that presentation that was made at that meeting, for ideas for a future public presentation. And then there'll be a fuller discussion with all the people involved. That would involve the Watershed Association, Conservation Commission, and so on, to talk about some of the pros and cons of different things that were proposed down there. So if you have any comments, if you haven't seen that, the presentation from that particular proposal and would like to see it, just let me know. I can send it to you if you haven't seen it yet, or if you're unable to make that meeting. One of the things that's directly related to that study that's having an impact on some other properties in town with regard to their development are floodplain issues. Floodplain issues historically have been important in town. Obviously, some sections of town are obviously a lot more subject to flooding than others. But where flood lines are located, that is where FEMA locates them, where they locate floodway, floodplain, and different designations within those areas is really important to different types of development. So there are some studies that are going on right now to look again at where the floodplain lines are on some specific pieces of property, and some of the developers that are looking at projects in the town center and then close to the town center are looking at these issues now. So just to keep an eye on that. Floodplain does have a significant impact in terms of what can be done with the property and how expensive it is to develop. So I just wanted to let you know. And some of the developers asked me to bring that to your attention today, so I wanted to do that.
This is a reassessment of where these lines are?
Actually, what happened in 2008, Dave, there was a reassessment by FEMA after the big storms that were taking place. After Katrina actually started this, and FEMA started to relook at that. What they did was they did kind of a quick and dirty, if you could call it that. I mean, it was a major study nationally, but they did kind of a quick and dirty thing where they took a photographic base map and they put the floodplain lines on a photographic base map. And so what happened is what you ended up with is a piece of property that you might own that was, say, near a river or near a stream that previously you thought, well, I didn't have to have flood insurance and you were never required to. Well, it turns out that the floodplain line now runs across the corner of your property. Maybe it doesn't touch your house, but the bank decided, okay, because they've got sticker shock too, now we need to get those people to all have flood insurance. So that has a significant impact. And I would say probably an average of a couple of people a month come in with how do I get my property out of the floodplain? It's a very complex process, an expensive process, technically very detailed, but it has a significant impact not only on commercial properties but also residential properties as well. So that was done back in 2008. So we have maps in our office that were accepted, and you can go online and look at them as well, and you can create your own little map for your property if you want on the FEMA website. It's not easy to use. It's a very awkward site, and you really better have a lot of time to go because it's very slow to operate. But you can get that information online too if you want, or you can come into the office and we can talk to you about it as well. So it's frustrating for a lot of homeowners as well.
The flood insurance, the cost of flood insurance is really skyrocketing. Is that part of this?
There was a legislation, federal legislation a couple of years ago, believe it or not, called the Bigger Waters legislation. And actually it was named for two representatives that put that forward. But the cost of flood insurance, the idea was to make it self-sustaining. So that over a period of 4 or 5 years that the flood program would begin to pay for itself. So the thinking was, here we are all living on a hill. Why should we pay for all the people who want to live on the shore and have their homes destroyed every 5 or 10 years? And so the idea was make the program self-sufficient. Well, the impact of that is that if you do, in fact, have to buy flood insurance, your rates are probably going to go up 20% a year for the next 5 years until this program becomes self-sufficient. So there's a lot of properties in Florida for sale You can go down there and see the for sale signs all along the coast, because those are going up to some staggering figures where it might have been $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in the past. Those properties could, in fact, in some cases, be $30,000, $35,000 a year just for flood insurance. So it's staggering, and it's a lot of cost, obviously. And this affects, properties coast to coast, Mississippi River Valley, and so on. So it's a very important thing, and we need to continue to keep an eye on that from an economic development standpoint.
Just a quick clarification.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating.
I'm very ignorant in this area, ignorant in a lot of areas. But the question of is that a government flood insurance, or are the private insurance companies handling that flood insurance?
What happens?
Are they subsidized?
Yeah, the government offers it through FEMA. FEMA requires it to purchase the insurance be purchased. Private insurance companies can handle it. You can get your insurance through them. But the banks, prior to giving you a loan to buy a property or finance a property, will require that the flood insurance be obtained. So there are a number of different ways you can get it. Through private insurance, you can get it through, I know some people that have private insurance, you can get it through FEMA, but you have to have it somehow, typically in order to finance your whatever your transaction is going to be. Generally a sale of a property is when this comes up. So it's a fascinating area. We've done a lot of work in the coastal area. A lot of people have had either summer homes or small cottages or whatever. They get destroyed by a storm and they have to rebuild them. And if you spend more than 50% of the value of the structure, the existing value of the structure, on rehabilitating the property, then you have to bring it up to flood standards. This is going to affect, for example, the One Old Bridge property right here in town. And depending upon what the town decides to do with that property, if the value of that property or what is put into that property, that work that's put into it is valued at more than 50% of the value of the structure, which is not going to be much in that particular case, it's going to have to be brought up to flood standards. Otherwise, the structure is going to have to be removed. So those kinds of things will continue to come back to us in the near future. I know I'm not going to get through my list just based on the time we have today, but let me tell you a couple of things that I think that you might find important. I did send out to everybody a report that we just finished in-house, status of rental and multifamily housing in town. If you haven't had a chance to read it, I think, frankly, it's one of the best reports that we've ever been able to do. If you don't think this is an excellent report, let me know. It talks about national trends with regard to housing. It talks about regional trends in the Hartford area. And then the third section talks about Simsbury and compares them with 10 towns that we selected as well. Gives you lots of information about exactly what the status is with regard to our current housing situation and where we expect it to go in the near future. It talks about millennials, talks about boomers. Very interesting report. So if you haven't seen that and you missed a copy, just let me know and I'll send you another one.
I read it's very, very good. I sent it to a number of realtors.
Yeah. Should have made them pay for that. That was good. But I think it was a very helpful report. It does answer a lot of the questions that people have been asking for a while. Just so that you know, typically we have about anywhere from, depending upon the figures that you use, and there are a variety of them out there, between 75 and 85% of our houses are single-family homes. Condominiums are about 13.9% of our housing stock. And the rentals, even with the new rentals that we have currently approved, are about 11%. So one of the things that I always like to ask people to do is let me know, or just think about it if you would, what's the most attractive town that you can think of anywhere in the country or in the world? And then take a look at what the percentages of housing stock in those towns are. So if you have towns and you're interested in me doing that, I'm happy to do that. We have a lot of time in the office at night. We're thinking about different things that we can do to sort of compare things. So let us know what towns you think are the best towns in the country. We'll take a look at them, see what the mix of housing stock is, and see what you think. Because I know a lot of people are concerned as what's the impact on the character of the town with apartments, condominiums, and so on. So let us know, and we'll be glad to run those numbers for you. We did actually look at about 58 different towns when we did this report. We compared median income, home values, a ratio to income. We did all kinds of analyses, so we have a lot of information about answering those questions about character. Sometimes people think character is, well, when I drive down the street, what does it look like? Sometimes people think character is, well, what did I hear at the last cocktail party I went to about what people think of the town? Very different thing. What do I hear when I talk to realtors in terms of how easy it is for young people to move to town that want to get a job in a small store or open a small business? Or people that might want to use their garage to start a business. So those are all kinds of things that we have a lot of pretty good information on right now. So that's the housing part. I wanted to let you know that. Couple of quick things about what's going on. Was mentioned earlier about GIS system. That should be ready to roll out near the end of December, mid-January. Should be ready to go. It's really actually ready now. We're just doing some tweaking on some final things and moving that forward very quickly for you. I think it's going to be very interesting. People get a lot of information very quickly, very clearly. Having some interesting discussions with a number of people with regard to the Hartford property, having a meeting with the Hartford in the middle of this month as well. We're rapidly approaching that. I think it's next week or the week after. We're having a meeting with them to talk about their marketing efforts and where that is, so we expect to have some more information on that sometime in the near future as well.
So as of now, the information is what we've been hearing, right? There's no change?
There may be changes behind the scenes, Dave, but I can't have any specifics for you. I do know that I've talked to some specific people outside the state that are very interested in the property, and they're looking at various things. They've asked about things like the code that we did and how long it would take to get things done. Very interesting discussion of questions. Questions that people would ask when they're getting sort of serious about the property, so I'm very encouraged by that. We did talk about at the chamber yesterday about the shared parking effort that I mentioned to you a while ago. We're getting that effort underway, and probably the end of December, beginning of January, we'll get some letters out to the people in the town center that would be affected by that shared parking effort. Try to move that forward in January and February. One of the other things that a lot of business people are also very interested in are signs. We're having interesting discussions about signs, temporary signs mostly. People are putting up lots of signs, and they think it helps their business. I would tell you that my suspicion is that probably about half of the signs that get put up are unreadable. Very difficult. Other than clutter, it's not helpful to the businesses, although they may think it is. So we're going to be working very hard as we redo the zoning regulations on new sign regulations and making sure that we meet with the business people, talk with the business people about it, try to come to some sort of compromise about what's acceptable so that we can move those things forward. We think signs are probably one of the most important parts of the zoning regulation as well, so we want to make sure that we get that right this time. We did talk about some of the other plans that are moving through the process right now. Powder Forest, the PAD at the Powder Forest is moving forward. They're back with their final site plan they passed through the Conservation Commission the other night with no problem at all. They'll be going to zoning on the 15th.
That's Landworks?
Landworks, correct. There were 3 parts to that particular PAD, the assisted living facility, which we've not heard anything more about. There's a small commercial component in the front of that, continuing our discussions with EB on that as well. But the residential...
Originally on the assisted living down there, I think when Ensign Bickford made the presentation before us, they thought they had a developer, I guess, that was going to put is that kind of faded, or?
That particular individual is the client that he had did not come through for him. And so that
they don't have one lined up.
It's still zoned for that use in that location.
Okay.
That particular individual is not there.
Because that was 185 units or something, right?
That's right. It was good size, no question about it.
Incidentally, just as a point of order, I assume that most people know that Ensign Bickford has a new president? Yes? No? No. Okay.
One of the other smaller, sort of from a large project like that to a small project that I think is going to be very interesting at the top of Plank Hill in Firetown. There's a little small project. There used to be a business office there. It had been there for many, many years. There's 4 units of residential housing that was rezoned to a PAD as well, and got calls yesterday from people that said that they were really happy with the way that particular project is turning out. So from a large project like the Landwork projects to a small one like this one, take a look at the variety and different types of things there. Taking an existing building and redoing it into 2 residential units, I think, is an interesting. A lot of the realtors are looking at that as well. Dorset Crossing, East Point is moving forward very rapidly, and those units should be ready for occupancy sometime in March or April. 34 Hop Meadow Street is another PAD. That is the Northeast Utilities property. I got a call yesterday from someone who's interested in doing commercial buildings in the front of that property that were part of the PAD in that particular location. The rear is a residential portion. The front of it would be commercial buildings. And this is a person who's in the valley. They know the valley. They know the properties here, and they're interested in moving forward with some commercial building on that property along the lines of the types of things that were presented for the PAD. Northeast Utilities would stay there, obviously, and then the northern piece of that would be another commercial piece as well. That's basically enough. Unless you have any questions for me.
The Greenberg property.
Yeah.
All the approvals are in on that down there?
The zone was changed to PAD. The master site development plan, this is a multi-phase sort of approval process. The master site development plan for that project is approved. So the zone has in fact been changed. So what they need to do now is come back with their detailed site plan for the individual buildings so that design review and zoning can take a look at those as well. At the same time, what they do is they go through the Department of Transportation, DEP, if they need to do that as well, move through their.
But that seems to be on a fast track, is that correct?
Well, I would say the Landworks project right now is ahead of them. Obviously, they're in with their final site plan right now. They're coming.
I'm confused. Which is the Landworks project?
Powder Forest.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay. So the 34 Hop Meadow piece just recently got approved, and as I said, all they've gotten is their initial approval so far. They have to come back with a subdivision of the property, dividing it into 3 pieces, and then they'll come back with their final site plan ultimately. At the same time, they're probably going through their Department of Transportation requirements for the state has. So that's a little bit behind the Powder Forest project.
There's one other question I have, and you know what it is. You're going to
Yeah,
answer that.
yeah, I don't know. I asked them yesterday, actually, because I knew I'd be here today. I think by the end of the year, I'm told by the end of the year, that closing will take place for the Big Y.
That's this year, right?
2014. Correct. That same question was posed to me yesterday, too, so I was ready for that. Anything else? A lot of activities going on, a number of discussions that I'm having with some developers of large projects, and I hope by your next meeting I'll be able to talk about those with you as well.
Okay, and then we have budget for January on our schedule, so we should start working on that. And so we'll probably email people with some numbers and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so we should get some information from the Finance Department pretty soon about what format that we're looking for those things as well.
One quick question.
Sure.
In your discussions with the people who are newly applying for it, do you sense there is a greater optimism on a national economy scale, or is it just more indigenous to Simsbury?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I think that the national economy is on the uptick in lots of areas. I think that some areas are still fairly slow. I think that in Connecticut, we're doing a lot better than a lot of towns around us in that regard. I think that the Fairfield County area is obviously a lot more active than we are, than they always have been and probably always will be. It's much more connected and more closely related to New York. But I think that we're doing pretty well for the size of our. You know, what I'd also like to have for you next time, and maybe in partial answer to your question, Alan, is just what's been the change in our grand list, since the last time we talked about this a year ago, and just see where we've come since then. I know it's more than a grand list question, I understand that, but I think that's part of what we need to look at and try to figure out how do we get that blend right that your perfect town has, wherever that is. So let me know that as well.
We had some shock to the system with obviously number one commercial player.
Yep, absolutely. But I think we're going to be fine. I think within the year, by the end of 2015, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. My optimistic viewpoint.
Thanks. Let me get through 2 things quickly. A proposed meeting schedule. Unfortunately, I don't see the meeting schedule here. So. No, I think
that's part of after Y.
Yeah, so I'll get that out to everybody. So do you want to send that out?
I'll send it out right now.
Okay. And then the new minutes procedure, you can read in the packet here what those procedures are, and we can discuss it at the next meeting if anybody has any comments or questions. And with that, I'd like to ask, at the last minute, we got Elaine Lang from the Simsbury Historic Society, and to squeeze you in to give us a very brief.
That's okay, because I don't have a lot.
Okay.
I became president of the Historical Society a grand total of about 3 weeks ago, so I haven't gotten a whole lot done yet, so I don't have that much, but a big push that we're working on is we really want to engage more with the community, and particularly our business community, especially our neighbors. We've, over the years, kind of developed a closed reputation that is foreign to me, and I'm not sure where it came from, so I can't really answer to it. I grew up in Simsbury as a little kid in the 70s when that was the centerpiece of town where we all went multiple times per year. Moved away after college, came back 20 years later, and the Historical Society and the museum grounds had become quite quiet. So a big push for us is reopening and re-engaging and becoming more involved with business and nonprofit sectors in the community. One thing we've been discussing, which hopefully I'll have more to talk to you about in the future, is perhaps renovating one of our buildings that is less appealing right now and adding office and meeting space that could serve multiple nonprofits in town with a shared mission to improve quality of life and general health of the town. So the Chamber, Main Street, we had a long list, tourism, the bike folks, the watershed folks, just really trying to get that push of showing off Simsbury as an asset for local tourism. We have National Trust for Historic Preservation has named us one of the best historical tourism destinations in the country. We really feel like that's a way that we can contribute to the town and bring people in and really re-engage and involve. Kind of at a opening phase, we're going through some site planning and overall strategic planning, but would like to hear input from all aspects of the community, from the business community and from other nonprofits. So
Would this be using some of the buildings that are currently there?
yes, and we also are scheduled to receive a new building, which has been donated to us from the old Wagner Ford property, and we ask that what's going on with the big boy question as often as you do. And the destination and the format of how we're going to use that historic building is still in discussion. We're kind of looking, we added some experienced site planning and architectural people to the board this year, so we have some good input in terms of really not just slapping things up, but overall engaging with the charrette plans for the area should the situation change with Andy's, and how we'd engage with that.
So what's your time frame in terms of when you'd like to have a more sort of fleshed out plan?
We are having a board retreat mid-January to flesh out what our site plan is. In the meantime, I am openly inviting any input to me on what other people in the community would like to see, or how people envision us engaging and contributing to the larger community. So, you know, I work out of my house, so I'm around a lot more. I'm replacing a president who works out of New Haven and was not around much, although he manages to be on the zoning board, so he's around somewhere. But I'm definitely more available during the day than he was able to be. So, you know, I have slowly been making the rounds and grabbing people to get together one-on-one, but would invite any and everyone to stop by and give some input.
So Sarah, do you already have dibs on some building there?
No, Sarah was on vacation. She's like the only person I haven't got to go out for coffee yet.
On the chamber side, the chamber has been in discussions, and I think it's the center of town. It is part of what Simsbury is, bringing groups together that are of a similar nature.
Yeah, the discussion started, I mean, way back when the chamber came by with the possibility of renting a very small office space. And as we talked, the discussion of, well, wait, we've got all these groups with similar ideas and similar things. We could really pool our resources and do great things together. And that kind of came out of that. And then we had changes everywhere. So.
But what I was going to say was the discussion has developed, and to make it really work properly, there is some funding that would need to be done to help with the one particular building that you could consider the office building, that would need to be expanded, renovated, that could house the various groups, Main Street, Chamber, others, in the central location. There's discussion of the visitor center being there, so that kind of being a hub that if someone's coming through town, you get into that area. For that to be accomplished, funding is certainly something that is necessary, and that's where, in terms of our discussions and budgets, if it were to work, because the Chamber is kind of on a timetable to move by July 1st, that's kind of their hope, to accomplish some of this in the long term takes funding, but in the next few months, town funding is going to be locked in for the following year through June of 2016. So a timing issue is at hand with regard to how the town feels about it and whether it should be a town-wide effort, which would include some funding or some budget from the town, whether it's going to be to help renovate because of Main Street and some of the other organizations. So I think it behooves us as a commission to really discuss this, and as part of the recommendations for budgets, this is something that has to really be fleshed out in the next month or so from our perspective. If it's something we think is appropriate and we think it's the right thing to do, now's the time. 5 months from now, you've missed a year. You're now a year and a half later.
Yeah.
So timing is everything.
And I had met right after we last met with Mary, and she indicated there were some certain things. For years, she's wanted us to renovate the restrooms in that building for handicap access and for public access, just in general, being so close to the trail. So she indicated there were some spots of funding, but certainly it would require more than that, and we don't have that in our coffers. There are some community development grants. I haven't had a chance to talk to Sarah, but it's the type of project that I know the National Main Street always loves, because it's pedestrian friendly, small business friendly, all that good stuff. But I haven't done enough civic construction grant research to really speak to that.
As your neighbor down there, maybe Hiram has some information on the Andes building, and is there any activity going on down there on that, do you know? Because they are your neighbor. Right now, it's kind of deplorable, the condition of that building. So I don't know if there's anything going on or not.
We've started. We haven't. We're talking with them and trying to coordinate. As I said, we're doing our site plan, but the Andes situation being, it's very much up in the air, is my understanding, and we are trying to do our long-term planning with the assumption that the Charette's long-range plan will be coming to fruition at some point, but I have not heard anything about changes planned at Andes at this point, other than the fact that apparently someone signed a lease for the former grocery slot.
Is there, go ahead.
Excuse me, somebody signed, what, you've heard that there's a lease signed on the Andes building that?
Just on the grocery, I understand a gym
basement?
or something. No, the Hot Meadow side. I don't know about the basement side, except that they're graciously allowing
Well,
us to store
somebody's
some
in
things there.
Somebody's in there already with baseball or something, right?
Yes, the Simsbury Baseball Academy.
Yeah. Is that what the lease has been signed on?
I had heard it was Cardio 24 or something.
Yeah, it's different, it's gym.
Oh, a different,
A different gym.
okay.
Yeah, but that, I had heard it, so.
Because originally, the baseball guy was going to go down into the basement when he came in, I think.
That's what we were told, Dave, and it hasn't worked out. We've had a number of discussions with the building owner to try to get him to do something significantly different with the building than currently is the case. We haven't made much progress yet.
Well, if they signed a lease with a different tenant, that's pretty good, because that means that guy's got to go somewhere, right? Or I assume well, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to that family at all about explicit plans, so
I think we should be very cautious. Currently, that we know of, and I could be incorrect, but I think we should be cautious. I don't believe there's a signed lease in place for for that space for a new tenant yet.
Oh,
So
okay.
I would just be cautious in
That's what I get for hearing
disseminating,
things.
unless there's been a signed agreement and I think we would just be very cautious in what we're saying and disseminating, please.
I know this is all very preliminary, but has the Historical Society thrown around any numbers whatsoever?
We have not.
Okay.
And because part of what we're doing is asking groups that are interested in terms of what would their square footage needs be, and what would their contribution be, and we'd also have to work out, would it be a contribution on the front end, and rent going forward, or how would that work? So all of that would need to be hammered out. Our biggest issue is that, we tend to get push on the front end for new projects, and then we have a lot of things that we maintain out of our budget that, frankly, most people in town don't realize we do. I did an informal survey of what do people think of that fountain by Abigail's, and I've had a 0% return of people who knew that is one of our properties that we fund completely out of our donation and membership fees. Most people.
What is your budget?
Our budget, it's between 75 and 100 a year.
Okay.
But we've been operating at a loss for a couple of years, so, which is part of, our big push. I think there have been real opportunities that have been neglected, particularly with regional tourism. We had a bunch of Manhattan leaf peepers come to one of our fall events, so I think really we could do better at aggressively bringing people into town, which really buoys not just us, but our local restaurants, hotels, everything.
Yeah.
So.
Well, certainly reach out to the EDC in terms as you head down this path to let us know what we could do, perhaps, for, that facility as your
Absolutely.
plan evolves.
And, as I said, anything, if there is a push to invigorate drawing people into the center of town where we are, or even, at the Weetog end, as I said, we have properties everywhere. We're also looking at putting small displays of our collections at other locations around town, putting some up, Community Farm or Dorset Crossing, kind of, so bringing some of what we have to offer to North Village and Weetog as well as the center of town, so.
But as an EDC, we should be, we don't have to wait to get their number before our discussions begin. If it's a concept that we think is an economic development driver, we should be ahead of it and promoting it, and then working towards helping to bring these groups together. And time, the actual number that someone comes forward with can vary, and I don't think that's the driving force. The driving force is it a concept that we believe is good for our purpose and our town? And if it is, then we promote it and begin working on it, and the numbers will come at a particular time. But I don't think, if we think it's the right thing, that we should wait and sit back. And because I do think I personally think it's a very, very good idea. I think the hub in that area would be very good, given the bike path and a visitor center and having the various community organizations there. I think it'd be very, very good. That's my personal opinion, but as a commission, we can decide one way or the other. But if we do feel it is a good thing, then we have to get out ahead of it, because, as I said before, budget-wise, and if we're going to look for any amount of money, that it could be a lot, could be a little, it could be enough, maybe just not enough, and we have to go out and get enough. But that number gets locked in by, April, March. Hiram, when do budget
February.
numbers get locked in?
Yeah, well, they start obviously in December, but February, March, we're starting to get pretty
Yeah,
tight.
so February,
I
March,
guess my
you're done until the following
Right, my
June
question is,
2016.
there's the whole planning process. So all of that before, a shovel goes in the ground, the question is, could we be at the forefront of that, looking at, architectural plans, you got all this kind of stuff to do, can we be instrumental there, as opposed to any construction down the road? So,
Well, I don't think we're worrying about architectural drawings right now. I think we're worried about the concept and maybe earmarking some money, knowing that architectural drawings are not going to come by February.
No, I'm
It's
just
not
saying,
gonna happen,
this
but-
would be for the next budget. cycle, so, the monies would be available July 1st.
Right, July 1st through June 30th of 2016. We'd
Right.
have to get people inspired within the town, and I'm thinking from any ability to have any town funding of this type of event. However it comes, I'm not sure, but if there's any town funding, the timing of really getting this going is between July 1st, 2015 and June 2016. But that gets locked in February and March.
That's what I'm saying, so, yeah.
So earmarking it, you don't have to say, well, we're going to allow, $5,000 for X. We don't have to get to that number, but getting to having a budget set aside that could help along the way and get things going is something that needs to be discussed now.
I'm definitely not a construction budget expert by any, by even the worst definition of that, but in terms, I can speak to, what Lou was talking about with the value. I can see personally a tremendous value to the community and all of the organizations that would be involved, because I think every time I talk to someone from the Chamber or from tourism or any of these groups, we have so many overlapping talents and goals in terms of revitalizing the town and...
That's a key word, pardon me, revitalizing, because 20 or 30 years ago, the historic district there was kind of a center. They used to have docents. I had a son that worked there, and, recreating the Revolutionary War era and all that, it was a very...
It definitely got a
Interesting.
boost
A lot of
between the
people went there.
tercentenary and the National Bicentennial, which was when I was growing up in Simsbury. I was one of Martha Zablocki's little kids in costume, trotted down Hot Meadow Street, and so to me, when I moved back to town, the first thing I wanted to do was go back,
We
so...
lost all that, and just revitalizing that in and of itself would be a major contribution, I think.
Yeah, and we're definitely reaching out kind of in new ways rather than repeating the same bits of history. Especially, I think we've started to try to tap into a lot of very recent history, because there's a lot of people with a lot of nostalgia for that time and other times, just small things that we'll put out. We get our bike display, which I don't know if you've seen. The most popular ones in there are I can't remember what it's called, but it's like got the banana seat and the big handlebars that the streamers were off, and basically every woman who grew up in the 60s and 70s has walked in and gotten excited about seeing that bike again. So tapping into a lot of our more recent history is part of it as well.
Part of it, and that's how they could funnel it in,
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much for
Okay.
coming in.
Thank you very much for
Hope you
having
come
me.
back again.
Thank you.
I will indeed.
With that, any other issues, old business, new business? Okay, we have a motion for adjournment?
Looking at schedule of meetings.
Oh, you do want to vote on it?
Excuse me, yes. So everybody has the calendar here. You got that?
That looks great.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the calendar for 2015?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Second, motion for adjournment?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Because I think if you're gonna, if they're gonna put in
Looking at the calendar, 1,
They do a
2,
visitor
3,
center.
4 more.
Right off the bike path with bathrooms. Support that downtown area. They have to
come out into the open.
Because right now the land trust is down there. You have a historical society. The chamber's looking to go down, but they can't.